if you look at the background here, you could see that we have a very strange project going on in our backyard. And I'm using that as an illustration because Yahweh has a plan and he knows what he's doing. And we can see the bricks and we can see the blocks and we can see a pattern. But if we don't know what the final project or product looks like, and you're picking something up in the middle, you're gonna make some wrong assumptions along the way. If you try to make a conclusion from a project that you have no background on or very little background on, and you get dropped in the middle of it, it's going to take a while to sort out where you are in the project and what it's supposed to look like in the end. Now, the Bible does give us a pretty good outline of how we're supposed to be living today, and it gives us a pretty good outline of the events that are going to happen in sequence. But as far as where we are in the plan, maybe 2/3 of the way through, maybe we're 7/8 of the way through. We don't actually know. We know we're pretty far along, and we can see the bricks, but we don't know the entire, entirety of how he's going to get to where he wants us to be. And so this starts with this timeline I was talking about on Shabbat, where a lot of times we get into the scriptures and we start focusing and putting ourselves into a time that we don't belong. The first Sabbath organization that we were a part of was heavily into vegetarianism because Adam and Eve were vegetarians. And the problem with that is that we don't live before the fall. We live now, after 1900 years plus after the close of Scripture. So we have a lot more information. We know that Yahweh actually expressed very clearly and very specifically what he wants for us to eat in Leviticus 11, and that includes what he does not want us to eat. So at no point, no Bible author ever ate any pork. And there were some Bible authors and some Bible people who were vegetarians for whatever reasons. It's okay to be a vegetarian. It's not okay to say that the Bible wants us to be a vegetarian. So then we move on to the people in our movement who have this idea in their head that if we were to have the perfect Hebrew alphabet and the perfect pronunciation, and we had a wilderness tabernacle, that's the goal. That the goal is for us to kind of move away from society and kind of save ourselves today. Now, that's not the case. There's two pretty big problems with that. The first being that Moses knew that he wasn't the end of the line. Moses spoke about the book of life in Exodus 32. He wrote clearly about the prophecy of the Messiah, that somebody else was going to come that we had to listen to. And he also wrote very plainly at the end of Deuteronomy that Israel was going to be scattered. Now, we don't know how much of the project Moses was privy to, but it's very clear that he knew that the goal, even if the goal was for Israel to be perfect Torah keepers, that was not going to be eternity. That wasn't even going to be the millennium. That there was going to be lots of sin, lots of falling away, regathering, and the Messiah was going to come. The Messiah was going to come and speak only the words that Yahweh gave him. And so that's not the goal. And we get into the Old Testament, we get into the Hebrew Scriptures, and we see the faith through the proper Hebrew perspective. But we also have to understand that we live now. And that nobody in the New Testament made a group and went out and made their own Judea. That wasn't even a possibility. It wasn't a goal. There are commandments. Yeshua did say that when you saw the time that you would have to flee Judea into the hills. Doesn't mean you're supposed to stay in the hills. They fled Judea to the hills so that then that way they could disperse among the nations and carry the gospel with them. And then that's one extreme. One extreme is looking back and trying to make it perfect, trying to go back in time and be perfect Torah observant people. Now, we are supposed to be obedient. We're supposed to keep Torah. That's true. But then there's another extreme of people who are stuck, and this is the most of Christianity, really, who are stuck in the 1600s. They look at the King James Bible as if it's Holy Scripture, and that nothing else can be compared to it. And they take the doctrines of Calvin and Luther, who were very flawed men with a perspective that's very removed from first century Judea, who brought in a lot of philosophies that we're still living with today. But just understand, we weren't supposed to stop there. The Reformation was good, and it got the faith away from the Catholic Church. It put Bibles in our hands, and it restored the more one-on-one relationship that we have with God and with Yeshua. I guess it's two-on-one, but those were good things to happen, but it didn't stop there. We have had another 700 years of history to learn from and to glean from. They have earlier manuscripts. They have the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have much better Bible translations today, and we have the history of the 20th century history of how incredibly evil mankind can become, and we have the problems that the world's facing today. So just understand that we live when we live, and try not to get too much stuck when we're doing our studies. Yes, it's very important for us to understand Moses in order for us to understand the rest of Scripture. And it's very important for us to understand the history of the churches and the Reformation and the problems that they were trying to solve. But don't get stuck there, and don't stay there. Don't get stagnant. Let the Ruach HaKodesh move you. And that way, maybe then you can see some more Yahweh's blocks, and that project, that mysterious project he's working on, will make more sense. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you all on Shabbat.